Welcome into the Saturday Show, everybody. Hope you all are doing well on this Saturday morning. I'm Jake Hatch, joined by Michelle Bodkin as always. Michelle, you're back in town.
I am.
Okay, so...
And stuff hit the fan. Like, literally.
Yes. Yeah, lots of stuff hit the fan. There's no doubt about that. So we got plenty to talk about on today's show. But first off, how was your... Because you kind of married, obviously, the going down to Pac-12 Media Day, but also took a little time off as well. So how was all of that, first off?
That was really fun.
Okay.
It was really great seeing some of my family that I haven't seen in a little while and just hearing the stories. So my grandpa had 9 siblings, and the 3 remaining siblings, the 3 siblings that are still alive, all live in Vegas now. So they're kind of the ones with all the stories, all the adventures growing up, and they're a cast of characters. But one of my favorite stories that I love hearing all the time is my family actually has a connection with the Beatles.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pause the show.
Yeah.
Please tell.
Please tell. So there's this really quite famous photograph of like a car with kids in it.
Okay.
And the Beatles in a car looking at the kids.
Okay.
And it's like deer in the headlights sort of thing. That was my great uncle and his friends.
Okay, then.
He worked at, I think, if I remember this correctly, he worked at the Vegas airport.
Okay.
Knew that the Beatles were coming in, and I can't remember if it was one of my great aunts, one of his sisters, or our second cousin. But anyway, he took one of them and like a friend to go just like, and they weren't trying to like corner them or gawk at, like they just kind of wanted to be out of the way.
Yeah, but they wanted to see him.
To see them like come off the plane and get into their car. Well, as it turned out, wherever they parked was the way they were trying to get out. And so they blocked them off, and the Beatles are confused. So they're sticking their head out of the car going, what the heck's going on?
What are you guys doing here?
And someone happened to be there to catch a photograph, and it's like a photograph that's used, or that was used to talk about like just how crazed teenagers were over this group. But yeah.
That's actually really cool.
It is really cool. My jaw dropped. I've known about this, I don't know, maybe about 5 years. But yeah, so it's stories like that though, and like I said, they got into all kinds of stuff like that back in the day. So it's really kind of fun hearing all those stories and hanging out with them. So it was a good time. That was definitely my highlight of the week, because the end part of the week not so great.
Well, yeah, you've been working like crazy hours, obviously, with everything going on. But yeah, I like that. That's actually a really cool story. Yeah, obviously a highlight of the week to hang out with extended family. You don't see that often. Stuff like that's awesome. So, all right, Christian, producing for us today. We've had Sarah for like a month, so it's good to have you back in the saddle. But highlight of your week, sir.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go back 2 weeks ago from
I
yesterday.
figured you might have, but go ahead.
Big wedding day for me. It was successful. She said yes. Nobody objected.
So positives on both fronts there.
Yes. And she had lots of wonderful family fly in from Las Vegas, New York, kind of all over the country. It was an awesome day. It was so much fun. Then the morning after, we hopped on a plane, went straight to Cancun. So spent a week there, and now I'm back.
Yeah, back to reality.
Yes.
Well, welcome back. But
thank you.
Like, how's the 2 weeks since been? Awesome?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we spent a week in Cancun, and then we came back and both got right back to work. So it's still kind of not set in, but I mean, it's been great so far.
Awesome. Well, that's what we like to hear. All right. Highlight of my week was last night. My wife had a girls' night with her sisters, so I said, you know what, kids, let's pile in the car. We're going down to the driving range. Went down to the driving range, let them hack away with their golf clubs, and they had a great time. Then got Chick-fil-A afterwards and enjoyed time together. So it's fun.
I love that.
Yeah. Don't get – and this time of year, like, it should be my downtime. It's been nonstop.
Well, you know. I love that we all got to spend, like, valuable time with family. That gives me the warm and fuzzies. So
yeah, no doubt about that. All right, well, there's a lot happening out there in the sports world. Obviously, here locally, I know, shocking. But let's get right to it. Let's get to what's the big deal.
Do you know who I am?
No, I can't say that I do.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Really?
People know me.
Well, I'm very happy for you.
I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, And my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
All right, so Colorado decides that it wants its piece of like time in the spotlight. It kicks off another round of realignment. It appears now there's still pieces that could move, that could calm things down here, Michelle. We'll talk about this in a minute.
Yep.
But Colorado officially makes the move. They make the vote. Their regents get up in a Zoom meeting that everybody could tune into, and they said, we are hereby authorizing unanimously Colorado pursue membership in the Big 12. Moments later, Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, issues a press release, which I got to say, when you channel Michael Jordan, I'm always down with it. It says, this has been the statement about Colorado. Quote, they're back.
Yeah.
So the Colorado Buffaloes are joining the Big 12 Conference in 2024, same time that UCLA and USC are leaving for the Big 10 Conference. So currently, we have a Big 10 with 16 teams, we have a Big 12 with 13 teams, and now we have what we're calling the Pac-9 for the time being.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Here we go. Yeehaw. What are we doing here? I don't know.
Great question. What are we doing here, Michelle? Because you've done it. I got to say, you have been working hard. You've been hitting the phones. I'm sure lots of text messages flying back and forth. Give me a sense of where you stand on all of this right now. It's a big 30,000-foot view, but where do you stand right now on everything?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of been a wild, 7 days, to be honest. And, just trying to figure out, where did things go wrong? Why did this go so completely sideways? Because to be honest, things were looking good at Pac-12 Media Day, at least from the bigger picture.
Well, it felt that way, yeah.
I was getting, I was fielding phone calls and text messages, and one of those came from someone, they don't care about the Pac-12.
Okay.
They don't care about the Big 12. They love college football. They work more on the TV end of it. And it was kind of a thumbs up, hint, hint, wink, wink. Things are looking good on this Pac-12 media deal, and it's going to be good.
Okay.
So, I mean, someone with no skin in the game whatsoever outside of just loving college football.
Okay.
Obviously, some of the other messages were kind of coming more from a Pac-12 angle. But, I mean, all signs were pointing to this is going to be good and it's going to end up well, and we'll discuss this, probably again another 5 to 7 years down the road. Wake up Wednesday, and all of a sudden something's wrong. And
a
it's
wrench
kind
was
of
thrown in the gears. Yeah.
Right. And, I mean, the weird thing about covering this is we've heard all these various storylines before, right? How many times have we heard that Colorado was out the door? How many times have we heard that the Pac-12's media deal is just about done? There's just varying whatevers involved with this. So it's kind of okay, well, it's it's maybe more or less kind of same old. But we'll watch it.
Sure.
And as the day kind of progressed, and as I was taking phone calls and talking to people, there was a lot more confusion this go around than there has been with any other time. The messaging I was getting back from people was conflicting. And that's kind of when I started doing uh-oh. When people don't know what's going on, when you can't get a consistent message across the board from the people you're talking to.
Sure.
That, I think, usually triggers there maybe is something going on here. And so, obviously, as things panned out, that's exactly what happened. But as far as, trying to figure out the hows or the who's or the whys, that's still a little bit of a mystery. There's some educated guesses. I had one person tell me that Colorado had an issue with the unequal revenue sharing that was proposed in the grant of rights.
Okay.
I've also heard that Philip DeStefano, the chancellor
of Colorado,
after he kind of called out Thursday before Pac-12 Media Day, or maybe it was Wednesday leading into Thursday.
He told the Denver Post Wednesday that in an article the Denver Post wrote, it was on Wednesday when they wrote it. He may have talked to him on Tuesday or whatever. He said, Thursday there's a Pac-12 executive meeting.
Right.
I am expecting to see numbers on the media rights. Show me the money. Show me what we're looking at.
Right.
Go into Thursday. Then Friday morning, Pac-12 Media Day, Rick George, their AD, bails after Kliavkoff does his opening spiel. He takes off. Reports come out that DiStefano and the rest of the executive committee never saw numbers in that meeting.
Right.
And it feels like that may have been the straw that proverbially broke the back.
Yeah, that there's some hurt feelings, some ups, some angst, like... I'm a little unclear. And then the other part of it that I keep hearing a little bit of is inside and outside pressure to make a move.
Well, and according to reports, the Big 12 essentially told them August 1's your drop dead date. Figure out what you're doing.
But there's also I've heard, and again, it's going to take some time to sort all of these different things out, which is again why I think I was getting conflicting messaging. And why others were getting confusing, conflicting messaging. But there has been some talk about some of the bigger boosters kind of overtook everything.
We're talking about Colorado.
Yes.
Okay.
They're the ones that allegedly are footing the bill for Dion. And I think they wanted some action, some security. And so, there's some talk that maybe they overstepped or whatever and kind of pushed this thing through.
Got it.
It could be one of those things. It could be a combination of those things. It could be none of those things. Maybe that's not any of those things. But those are kind of the things I've been hearing so far as to potential causes, reasons why. And, now the Pac-9
for now
it has some really, really difficult decisions to make. I cut and dry, that's what it is.
Okay, and to your point, a lot of these storylines are not new. There's something that existed for a year. But the only thing that's changed is Colorado actually
did something.
Yeah, we have movement. Colorado and one of their regents got up on that Zoom conference. It kind of turned into a pep rally a little bit, it felt like at times. But one of them got up, and this, to me, it was the most revealing comment I thought from the entire thing. I don't remember what his name is. He's one of the regents up there. They all gave him kind of their chance to kind of say their piece on their decision here. And he says, "It's my fiduciary responsibility to authorize this." I said, I wanted the Pac-12 thing to work, but it's my fiduciary responsibility. And fiduciary means you are acting in the best interest of the entity you represent. In that case, he's representing Colorado. He says, it is in my best interest to send Colorado back to the Big 12. That is, to me, that screamed to me everything that Colorado's kind of been gunning right now with. Now, there's all kinds of reporting out there that Colorado's kind of operated in its own little sphere when it's been part of the Pac-12. Great. But the biggest thing that changed is Colorado has made the move. The Big 12 has accepted them back. There will be 13 teams, at least for the time being. So now, Michelle, the question I have, and I kind of want to get your thought on this, is the Pac-12 responds with their statement.
Yeah.
And I've got one major problem with this statement. And let me lay this out, and I want you to respond to it. Is they say, we look forward to getting our media rights deal completed, and then we will aggressively address expansion. They have it backwards.
Yes.
Oh, so you agree? Okay.
I think they've had it backwards from the whole get-go.
Okay.
And I'm not the only one that feels that way. I was listening to John Wilner and John Canzano's podcast. They talked about that. And especially considering, okay, fine, you wanted to do it the other way. That's great.
Okay.
But, things changed.
Yeah.
Things changed. Shots have been fired.
Movement has happened. And, again, you're sitting back and taking a very passive approach again. The time to be passive over. You got to show, I don't doubt that the remaining 9 want to stay together. Okay.
But, if you're not showing any actionable steps to making that happen, other people are going to bail.
Well, and
they're going to bail. And
that's the thing. I tweeted out, they were supposed to have a meeting, obviously, when Colorado made their move. They were having a meeting with all of the remaining chancellors, university presidents, and the ADs. All of them were supposed to be on that meeting. Michelle, that may have been the biggest Liars Club meeting of all time. There's not a person in that room, I would imagine, that's going into that meeting being like, I believe none of what y'all are saying.
Well, and I mean, here's the thing, is it finally happened, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, everybody is going to be a little leery of everyone else. But at the same time, like, you can't tell people what you're doing.
Sure. And then to your point, you had Carolyn Folt, the USC president, tell you 2 years ago, whatever it was, don't expand.
Yeah.
And what do? They turn around and walk right out the door and say, hey, we're getting that $70 million plus from the Big Ten.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.
And here's the thing. The Pac-12 has had opportunity after opportunity, at least two very clear opportunities where they could have mortally wounded the Big 12. The Big 12 survived both of them because Larry Scott in one instance and George Kliavkoff in the other, both, as you mentioned, took a passive position, if I get that word out of my mouth, and said, you know what? We're gonna let things ride.
Yeah.
Whereas what Brett Yormark is doing is he's like, man of action. We're doing stuff. We're going to establish ourselves. And it looks like right now the Big 12 has essentially run a lap around the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 is still just like, we're good. You can't, to your point, the time for passivity, whatever.
Sure.
That's the word I created.
It's fine.
It's over.
Yeah.
You guys, and that statement I heard, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, it's the same, different day. Like,
insert word here. Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to not get censored here.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And
Christian,
fees and all that
get
good stuff.
Get that dump button ready. Let's go.
But I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, I mean, we talk about all the time. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
And it appears what the Pac-12 is doing. Yeah. To your point.
And maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes that I don't know about, because obviously they're not going to advertise those conversations. But
we'd have heard something.
It's kind of one of those things where we've seen this song and dance a couple of times now. And until you start showing me that you're doing something completely different in an effort to make this work,
sure,
I'm going to have my doubts at this point. Like, I fully trusted, I fully believed, as do I think a lot of people, because why would we not? It's coming directly from you. You know, we would hope that you would know what's going on with your own business.
Yes.
But once again, proven that maybe not so much. So I hate being harsh like that. And actually, maybe I'm saying it in the nicest possible way still.
But you are. Trust me. There was a text message I got from somebody who's connected with the University of Utah who was irate. Let's just put it that way. This week.
No doubt.
And they're not, and they're related with. They're not in the administration.
Right.
They're more of a fan.
Yeah.
And they're just sick of how the Pac-12, and he pointed at George Kliavkoff. You can point at whoever you want. He's just sick of the fact that there's a bunch of inaction on one side and all the action on the other.
Yeah,
and
for sure. And fans should be fed up.
Yeah.
They should be fed up.
And I get the sentiment, because you're right. You're watching your arch rivals conference over here, still one of your programs. And yes, is Colorado a difference maker on the football field right now? Absolutely not. But what it does is it has severely weakened your position with your conference, whereas it has strengthened their position. It brings a new media market. It brings a brand. That's what Colorado brings. Are they going to be a team that walks in and competes for the top of the Big 12 right away? No. Would Utah do that? Yes. But the thing now is the other 9 schools in the Pac-12, you're right. I've got no doubt that they probably would prefer to kind of operate as a unit and do their thing. But for that statement to come out and for them to say, we're going to get our media rights deal and then go after expansion, what media rights deal is going to give you advantages with just 9 members versus having 10 or 12? You have this completely backwards in my mind if you're George Kliavkoff. You need to go add SMU, Colorado State, San Diego. You need to get more members of the conference and then take that to market versus betting on, hey, I think us 9 can get the number we want.
And again, I'm not an expert on this, but from my outside perspective, that was the wrong thing to say. And to be quite frankly, I think shooting out a tweet essentially was the wrong move. I think somebody should have been
Hey.
holding a press conference. Somebody.
It would have been nice, but at least they didn't use the word consummated this time. Or consummating.
Thank goodness for small miracles. Like,
I'm just saying that word, whoever approved it, I'm like, consummating?
Yeah.
Makes me wildly uncomfortable. But nonetheless, to your point, it would have been good for George Kliavkoff to get in front of a camera or cameras and say, here's what we're doing.
Or President Schultz, who's the head of
the executive committee.
Someone.
Because
Stop hiding.
Well, they are hiding.
Yeah.
Because Kliavkoff spoke to the media at Pac-12 Media Day, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time since January, on the record.
I believe that is correct.
They're hiding. They're
and here's the thing, is like, again, I didn't mind, and I don't, in theory, mind you taking the higher road. I don't mind you, but like, again, there's got to be some action backing up that position of, you know what, we don't need to be front and center. You know what? No, we don't need to shoot off every time somebody has something to say. But again, there needs to be steps shown that you're doing something. And that's all gone out the window. That's all gone out the window. So again, sitting back, being passive, shooting off tweets with just words, not being present, not being in front of the camera, not addressing people, and saying what's up is a problem.
Okay, that brings me. So I put out, I guess we'll call them dueling polls. They're actually kind of just they're kind of joined at the hip. They're on my Twitter feed at Jacob C. Hatch. Michelle's on it. She's retweeted it. They're questions for both Utah and BYU fans. And it says, if all options are on the table, this is hypothetical.
Yeah.
If every option is out there on the table, like if the Big Ten's looking at expansion, the Big 12 is interested, all options are out there. For Utah fans and BYU fans, what do you want to see the future in terms of Utah, where they're at? And we're 100 plus votes on both of them. Some interesting results, Michelle. And let's see, we can talk about it for a second. So on the Utah one, I said remain with the Pac-12, join the Big 12, hold out for the Big 10, or other, independents, etc. Currently leading, join the Big 12.
I'm not surprised.
35.9% to 31% to remain in the Pac-12. Those are the two leaders in that. Now, on the BYU side of things, and I fully expected this, a little more petty, I said, okay, in terms of BYU fans, if all options are on the table, what do you want to see in terms of Utah's future? I had stay in the Pac-12, join BYU in the Big 12, go to Mountain West or Independence, or other, please respond below. Well, currently, go Mountain West or Independence is 41.4% of the vote. Join BYU in the Big 12 is second, though, 34.2%, and then stay in the Pac-12 is 20.7%. So there's opinions all over the place on this.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to update this. It's out there. I'd love to have you guys respond to it. Just Jacob C. Hatch on Twitter. I'd love to see where you guys kind of stand on it. And by the way, if you have other thoughts on it, feel free to respond via social media. We'd love nothing more than to have your guys' feedback on this, because I think you and I are kind of a similar mind, Michelle. The Pac-12, they've got to do something. And to your point, them sitting behind their little keyboard warrior screen over here is a little different. Brett Yormark, well, we found out this week that he's married into a crime family. He's got in-laws.
I saw something about that.
The Gambino crime family, his father-in-law. I'm
Hilarious.
Like, wow, it falls in line with a lot of things.
It does make a lot of things kind of make sense. If I'm being honest.
But here's the thing, like, it sounds like he's still not done. Like, they're at 13. They want to go to 14, possibly 16. It sounds like at least this for the 24 season. They essentially want to replace Texas and Oklahoma when they leave. They want to just stay at the 14, essentially. Right. It's the whole thing. You've seen The Dark Knight. The Joker breaks the pool cue, tosses it on the ground, says, "We're looking for new recruits. Figure it out." And the guys kind of look at each other like, So, all right. So, crazy times. We'll continue to update the poll throughout today's show. We'd love to have your guys' feedback on this. Coming up later, we're going to be joined by Spencer McLaughlin. He hosts the Locked On Pac-12 as well as Locked On Ducks, Oregon Ducks podcast for the Locked On Podcast Network. Funny enough, Christian and he are contemporaries down at Southern Utah. From back in the day. I've known him for years because he hosted the podcast. I work on the same network as him. He's got a lot of good thoughts on this. He's been hitting on this from every angle with Locked On Pac-12. We'll get his thoughts on it at 11 o'clock. Coming up next, we're going to stick with the BYU and Utah theme of things, Michelle, but we're going to shift it a little bit. We have fall camp starting on Monday for both of these programs. We're going to talk about some of the big questions for both going into that. We'll do that next. This is the Saturday Show right here on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone.
What if I wanted to break? Laugh it all off in your face. What would you do?
Welcome back to the Saturday Show here on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone. Michelle Bodkin, Jake Hatch, breaking things down here on a Saturday. Hope you all are doing well. Please feel free to weigh in on the show. We got a lot of good questions up on Twitter right now. Votes are up. We're nearing 150 on both of these, it looks like. So excited. We'll continue to update that in terms of the reaction. So the questions are from both BYU and Utah fans' perspectives. If all options are on the table, what do you want to see in terms of Utah's future? That simple question. I want it from the Utah side. I want it from the BYU side. And I know how Twitter works, and there are going to be people on both sides who are going to jump in each other's. Sure.
Ish,
yes. Keep it civil. Let's put it that way. But I did want to take a minute and step away from that and talk. So we'll continue to talk conference realignment coming at 11 with Spencer McLaughlin. But Michelle, funny enough, all of the realignment stuff has carried us through this offseason.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. We have gone through months upon months upon months. But starting Monday, true on-field.
real football stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We actually have preparation for an upcoming football season starting. So I kind of want to talk back and forth about both BYU and Utah. Now, the conversations around these two programs, especially in Utah's case with the current situation with the Pac, is that there are going to be people, it's always going to kind of go right back to the realignment thing.
Yeah.
But they have an opportunity here to do something that's never happened in Pac-12 history, is to win a three-peat. Okay, so give me two or three of what the biggest storylines you're expecting going in to training camp here for Utah. Understanding that Cam Rising is far and away, the health of Cam Rising is number one. Does that make sense? That one's an easy one. But what else you got?
I think there's going to still be a lot of curiosity about who backs him up.
Sure.
So I think, people are going to be watching that pretty closely. And then, to be honest, it's really probably the fact that they're hosting Florida. That's something that's never happened before.
Well, and Florida hasn't come west of the Mississippi in at least 2 decades.
In fairness, they were at the Las Vegas Bowl this past year.
Sure, I'm
but regular season,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a minute.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was that they came to play, and I think they lost.
And they don't travel very far for games.
No, well, the SEC period does not, they don't do this.
You can come play us at our venues.
Yes.
Going to yours? Yeah.
So, this is a really, I think, big opportunity. And especially, again, when you start thinking about and looking at potentially what's going to happen here over the next little bit. It's still a little murky as to what's going to ultimately take place, fall down, where people are going to end up, where people are going to stop and go. But when you have opportunities to showcase yourself in instances like this, go out and, in the famous words of Zach Moss, go do the damn thing. It's
not when that's. I like the sentiment because you're absolutely right, and that's the biggest thing with Utah is you are the reigning champs. Now you have been picked third.
Right.
To finish behind both USC and Washington. I got that right? Yeah, USC, Washington. Oregon's fourth. So there's a lot of contenders this year in the Pac-12, which actually, the funny thing is, the on-the-field product for the Pac-12 this year is going to be really fun, I think.
On paper, as it stands right now, it looks like it's probably going to be the best it's maybe been in its 13 years of existence.
A lot of high-level quarterbacking, a lot of just high-level play, it feels like. A lot of these rosters are locked and loaded. You have the reigning Heisman Trophy winner on USC. You've got Washington, who feels like Kalen DeBoer came in and just essentially righted the ship, and they've just kind of continued with Coach Pete had built it. I don't know, who was the coach that was it?
Jimmy Lake.
Jimmy Lake kind of let it just kind of...
Oh, man, have I heard some things about Jimmy Lake.
You and me both. But
not great.
Let it get sideways. Kalen DeBoer came in and said, you know what? The talent base is still here. Let's just... We're getting it back on course. And all they've done is take off with Michael Penix at quarterback, all that stuff. Utah, the two-time defending champions over there, yes, there's a question about their quarterback, but the rest of the roster for Utah is very strong. Oregon, they're continuing to kind of just build here. And by the way, that's not even counting the dark horse of Oregon State over here.
Yeah.
If DJ Uiagalelei is anything that he is capable of being early on during his time at Clemson versus what the tail end of it was, he's what he was early, well, all of a sudden, Oregon State's right there saying, hey, guys.
Hey. Well, and then I think you have two, maybe three teams that are capable of just mucking everything up. Yeah, Arizona has some potential. Washington State has some potential.
With their quarterbacking in particular.
And, UCLA always brings in talent. They're a little bit young this year. I don't know that they're contending for anything, but could they mess up someone's season? Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing about this. I'm fully expecting Arizona to pick off a win somewhere along the way against one of the top dogs that could affect the race. I expect that from UCLA. To your point, I also expect Washington State could do that. And who knows? Could Cal have a resurgent year? Because Justin Wilcox has got all kinds of pressure on him. But that's the thrill of what the Pac-12 looks like.
Yeah.
Now, we all know that the conversation around them is that 3 of your members are leaving after this year, that's one thing. But the on-the-field product looks very, very fun.
Yeah.
Now, flipping that to BYU for a minute, see, my biggest thing with BYU is there's a whole lot of unknowns out there. You've spent 2 years trying to build up to this. And to Kalani Sitake's credit, he's got two coordinators who were young assistants with him at Utah. We've already talked about this with Jay Hill and Aaron Roderick, who were all there when Utah made the transition to the Pac-12. So they've been through this process before, but it is a different conference. A lot more travel involved. Like, you're not going to the West Coast. You're going all the way to West Virginia at one point this year. You have a trip to Arkansas in the non-conference. You have a simple fact of the matter is that BYU, they have played as many as 7 Power 5 games as an independent, which is
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a good chunk.
But this year you're playing 10, and all 10 of them come in a row.
Yeah.
Like you play. Sam Houston's a decent program. They're making the leap to FBS football this year for the first time. But then you have Southern Utah. You should be 2-0 out of the gate. But then the real grind starts for BYU, and that's kind of what I'm looking at in training camp for BYU is, okay, does this roster, and it's impossible to really tell, but does this roster, the way they've gone about doing things roster build-wise in terms of using the transfer portal, have they tried to build up as much depth as possible? Because there are going to be injuries. We already know this. It's football. It's a violent game.
Happens.
Does BYU have capable 2s and 3s that when those injuries hit, wherever they might hit, because we don't know, you can't prognosticate on what's going to happen, but do you have them where the fall-off's not as extensive as it has been at points for BYU?
Right.
That to me, and like I said, that's a question that's hard to answer in training camp. But the other thing about this is Kalani is not afraid to throw his guys out there, 1s versus 1s, to really get a good feel for where his roster is at. That's the one thing I'm hopeful in terms of us as a media corps being out there watching it. We get a feel for that, and then obviously the truth will be told on the field coming up in September and October. But that's the interesting part about this, because Utah, they have spent 12 seasons building up to what they have going right now. Whereas BYU, they're year 1 here. Utah had a surprising year 1. We all remember this. Was it 9 wins, right? I think
they were 8-5.
Was it 8-5?
It was 8-5.
But they had the chance to go.
They should have been 9-4.
Had they? Yes. Okay. Colorado spoiled that to the point.
Freaking Colorado! Just kidding.
No, but yes, they had a surprising year 1. Then they backslid a little bit. I think BYU. I think Kalani, in his heart of hearts, he hopes this year might be that 5-7, 6-6, and next year you don't have the jump out of the gate. Then backslide.
Yeah.
I think he'd rather see the slow build begin this year.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, that's way more ideal. But, I mean, sometimes I think kind of as we saw with Utah, it was like pulling the arrow back, right?
Yes.
So I think they had to have those failures, and it sucked. It sucked. As a fan, it sucked. But they learned a lot from it. So I think as long as you're learning from it and you can show that, the arrow's going to go forward again at some point, Like, I don't think that that's necessarily the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I think ideally, like, of course you would like to see more steady progression rather than, hey, we surprised everybody and now everybody expects us to like fully compete the entire time. And oh wait, oh no, people caught up, people figured out our shtick. Back to the drawing board.
Sure.
So it's, I can understand why Kalani would feel that way. And, I think they're working with some knowledge that Utah didn't have.
Sure.
That possibly could make that possible for BYU. So we'll just, it's going to be fun and interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, and they've addressed that head on. He said, it gives us an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tom Homo said the same thing. I actually asked him, they had that press conference on July 1st. And I said, okay, you were a Power 5 head coach. You coached at Cal. Kalani, obviously, and his assistant.
That. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Before he became the AD at BYU, he actually was an assistant at Stanford, got hired as Cal's head coach. Was it a good run? No. I think he was like 1-10 and like 2-9. It was not.
You still learn things though.
Yeah. So he has an.
I did not know that about him. Yeah, that's interesting.
Tom's been a Power 5 head coach, and now it was a different era of football and all that, but he has that experience. Kalani went through that, and I think that gives him, as you point out, a little bit of background of what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about this is there are going to be players that we can talk about, the Cam Risings and the Keaton Slovises and Aiden Robbins on BYU side at running back, Jaquindon Jackson on. We can look at these star players and think, okay, those are key difference makers.
Mm-hmm.
My question for you, Michelle, I'm going to give my answer for BYU before you give yours for Utah. What player or players in your mind are going to emerge on the scene? And now, like I said, this is all us kind of speculating and looking ahead. But let me say the guy that I'm looking forward to for BYU is AJ Vongpachan. Now, he's the transfer from Utah State. Had a 100-tackle season a year ago, part of a quite stingy Utah State defense. It feels like he holds a huge key in any type of defensive resurgence BYU enjoys this year. He has the ability to be that true, Corene Reed, how he's kind of that bedrock of what the defense, everything kind of revolves around him and barking out orders, making sure teammates are in the right spot. That's what it feels like a guy like that is. Now, BYU has two other really good linebackers that are probably going to start, in Ben Bywater as well as Max Tooley. They're, in my mind, more freelance-type guys where their best ability is to have a guy like A.J. Vongpachan who can hold down the fort where they kind of go out and do their thing.
Yeah.
So that I don't want to put too much pressure on this kid, but it feels like he holds a huge, huge key to anything that BYU does this season. Is there somebody like that for you at Utah?
Ooh, there is a part, I don't know that we've been talking about Sione Vaki enough.
Good player.
I think he was showing some really good stuff towards the end of the season. I think he takes a step forward and really kind of helps anchor that and not that the defense has been like a ship without a sail.
Yeah.
Like they've been fine, but I think he could be that piece that just really kind of anchors everything down a little bit more for him. And offensively, I mean, you kind of already mentioned him, but I think Jaquindon Jackson is a huge key, especially, if you're having to kind of ease in and be a little careful with Cam and limit some of the running that he does, especially early on.
Yeah. You're not going to throw Cam out there and say, you've been clear, go do your thing like you used to. Yeah.
Go make a cut.
Yeah.
I think someone like Jaquindon and really maybe that actually entire running back room, because I think there's a lot of potential there, but I think you're going to rely on them to kind of pick up some of that slack, at least for the first little bit.
Well, and see, that's a good point. I feel almost similar to BYU. Now, BYU doesn't have nearly the same proven running backs because, trust me, I look at Utah's running back room, I'm like, who are you going to give all the carry?
I know. How are you going to keep everyone happy and together? But
the thing about this is BYU brought in Aiden Robbins, who had a 1,000-yard season a year ago at UNLV. Deion Smith comes over from Colorado, and he's had his moments at Colorado. But then you couldn't talk about Sione Vaki breaking out down the stretch last year for Utah. Well, Hinckley Ropati was that for BYU a year ago. He's this muscle-bound hamster of a running back, and I mean that in the kindest way possible. He's
like
5'8", 5'9", but he's 210 pounds and cut as all get out. Like, he looks okay, and he became like this star. screen passes, just being hard-nosed runner down the stretch last year when Christopher Brooks had some of his falters. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, who is this guy? So that, to your point, allowing a guy, in Cam's case, where he's coming back from injury, or a guy like Keaton Slovis at BYU, where he's, okay, he understands the offense, but he's got to get comfortable. Mm-hmm. Well, having a strong running game
takes some of the pressure off. It doesn't have to all be him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Of course, you're going to be doing your thing up at Utah. I'll be doing plenty of bowls, mainly BYU, but I get to Utah as much as possible as well. I'm interested to hear what these coaches have to say, though, because now it's real now. Mm-hmm. Like, media day's fun.
Yeah.
But as the old ball coach Steve Spurrier says, it's talking season. That's over now.
Yeah. It's game time.
And
it's on.
If you want to earn playing time, this is when you earn it. So it'll be interesting. All right, we will come back on the other side. We'll get into technical fouls. Coming up at 11 o'clock, Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On Pac-12 and Locked On Ducks podcast will join us to talk about conference realignment. Still plenty to go right here on the Saturday Show on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show here on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone. As you heard, it is time now for technical fouls. Kind of we step away from all the other stuff going on in the sports world, and we kind of talk about some of the weird and unique things going on in sports, people behaving poorly, all that type of stuff. I got a couple here, but Christian, I want to start with yours real quick. Go ahead. I want you to fire off this week for us.
Okay, so mine's not as much acting stupid as it is just a funny story.
Got it. Okay.
NFL training camp started this week.
Mm-hmm.
And when rookies report, they have to take this conditioning test.
Okay.
They're given the test in the spring, so they kind of have all spring and summer to train for it.
Like, this is what you're going to have to do here, guys.
Yep, they know what to expect. They're not going to be blindsided by anything.
Mm-hmm.
So Chicago Bears first-round pick Darnell Wright. He's an offensive tackle, 330-pound guy.
Okay.
First off, he shows up to training camp. Everybody's like, oh, my gosh, he looks like kind of lean. Like, he's really, really in shape. He slimmed down a little bit. And then he goes and kills this conditioning test, and everybody's just blown away. They're like, what the heck? Like, this is crazy stuff. Turns out back in the spring, he was looking at the conditioning test for the wide receivers. So all spring and summer, he's been training for the wide receiver conditioning test as a 330-pound offensive tackle.
Oh, my God.
And so, yeah, he's slimmed down a little bit and showed up to camp and athletically impressed everybody so far.
Well, good for him, but read the fine print a little closer next time, big man. Like, that's awesome, though. Hey, it probably serves him well, honestly, in many respects.
It can't be bad for him.
He's trying to do the wide receiver. He's probably looking at it like, huh, what? Dude.
They said he didn't even break a sweat.
Wow. That's impressive, actually. I will give him credit on that. Geez. 330 pounds. These, by the way, I don't think people realize how big some of these athletes are. Like, they're dudes like I've seen Darnell Washington. Trust me, he's a big dude. There's the kid that from Southern Utah. Christian, you know this name. Was starting left tackle for Chicago a year ago.
Braxton Jones. He's a local kid here who ended up as an undrafted free agent or a 7th-round pick. When was he drafted? Was he drafted? I think like 5th or 6th round or something.
He was drafted,
like that,
but he emerged out of training camp as their starting left tackle for the Bears and really held it down. They think he's a franchise piece, like they're going to use him. It's fun to see, but Braxton Jones, like, you see these dudes, you're like, man, these are big human beings. So anyways,
he's huge.
Crazy stuff. All right, I got one here real quick, Michelle, unless you want to go next.
Go ahead.
Okay, so last week, Jordan Addison was pulled over for going 140 miles on an interstate in St. Paul, Minnesota. By the way, the posted speed limit in this stretch of is 55 miles an hour. Now, we've already talked about him doing this. It's dumb to do it. Did you see his excuse?
His dog was having a medical emergency, which I kind of was like, well, okay. Then.
Okay.
It's still not a good excuse.
Dogs, I get, like, okay. And PK mentioned this. His sister actually had her dog in the backseat of her car choke on a bone or something like that.
Aww,
which, okay,
baby.
I couldn't understand that. Like, if it's in the car.
Yeah.
140 miles an hour?
To get home.
And the dog was at home.
Yes.
The dog wasn't in the car with him.
No, dog was on the car. He was not rushing to some, like, pet hospital. Like, dogs, be it far from me to say that's bunk on his excuse. But I've got my questions. That he's probably trying to think of something.
Yeah.
Anything. But Don't do 140 miles. Frankly, I'm stunned he was not arrested on the spot and put in jail for reckless driving. Now, they gave him the citation and whatnot, but they said there's still an open investigation. That type of speed, though, I'm not going to lie. Any of us pulled that charade, you're probably in handcuffs.
Done.
Like, you're more than twice the speed limit. And by the way, he's in a Lamborghini that was loaned to him. It had dealer plates on it and everything.
Lamborghini Mercy.
Yeah. I don't know.
Your chick, she's so thirsty. Yeah.
Well done. I like that.
Thank you.
But it's just like, come on now. Come up with a better story, it feels like. But nonetheless, I hope his dog's okay.
Yeah.
But
I am genuinely concerned for your dog, but
I hope some Minnesota media member, next time they get to talk to him, how is your dog, is the first question out of their mouth. I hope it is.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, what do you got?
Okay. So the Oakland A's are basically out the door and on their way to Las Vegas. And apparently they are not concerned with making any friends as a lame duck organization.
No, they're not.
Shocking. Because they weren't concerned about making friends in Oakland anyway. But so A fans have been trying to organize multiple protests, most notably the so-called reversed boycott at the Oakland Stadium. And their efforts to get team owner John Fisher to sell the franchise have even moved across the bay. At a San Francisco Giants home game against the A's, both sets of fans united in calling out Fisher to sell the team.
Yep.
Rob Manfred has admitted that the A's stadium situation is his biggest regret as commissioner, even if he's deflected any responsibility for it. The fans have organized on social media to promote another reverse boycott for the August 5th home game against the Giants. And while Fisher's generally remained silent throughout the process, he and his operants team are clearly paying attention. But basically, so Reddit users noticed something strange about the ticket prices for the August 5th game.
A week from now.
They suddenly became a whole lot more expensive than other home games.
Yep.
What a mess. What a mess.
And I had this on my list. So currently the cheapest ticket available for the reverse boycott when this article was written was $44. And the Coliseum is a cavernous facility. I've never been to it. I've just seen enough pictures of it.
Yeah.
It used to house the Oakland Raiders, obviously.
Right.
Some of those seats are a long – when that's $44, you know that something fishy's up.
So something's up.
You guys want to have that reverse boycott? Well, guess what? You're going to literally
pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to take your money as you do it.
They also point out just a few days later, ticket prices for home game against the first-place Texas Rangers started just $10.
So petty.
Oh.
So petty.
We had Bob Nightingale on this week with DJ and PK, who's, of course, the USA Today columnist for Major League Baseball. He's of the opinion, he's like, them moving to Las Vegas, they're not getting what they're not going to draw that many people. He said people go to Las Vegas, they're not going to be like, you know what I want to do? I want to go to an Oakland Athletics game when they have all the other entertainment options down there in Sin City. And I was stunned that he said that, but he's like, I just don't see it happening. I'm like,
I don't know.
Wow.
I think, to be honest, I think Vegas is in a place where they are trying to move from like traditional gambling to making it a sports gambling city. And so, hey, I think they're trying to clean up the type of people that roll on through, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I think they're trying to do that by bringing in major sports teams and having the gambling connected to it.
Well, and you're right. That's absolutely part of this. It's going to be interesting. I do wonder, they're going to make, like, John Fisher's going to make money moving to Vegas because he's getting public subsidies in the hundreds of millions of dollars to help build that stadium and all that stuff. But it's just interesting to see. I just wonder how quickly Vegas fans will embrace the A's if they do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you've had Bryce Harper over there saying the A's are Oakland's team, and he's a Vegas native. Like,
yeah.
Bryce is a lot, like, Las Vegas is in his blood. And he's like, no, that ain't. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. By the way, bring Major League Baseball to Utah. That's all I've got to say on it.
Yeah.
I'd love to have that. But obviously,
it would be fun.
They've still got to resolve the Tampa Bay Rays thing. But the other thing about that, Bob Nightingale did say that he thinks that the earliest any expansion team starts play, no matter where they're expanded to, is 2030. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. But keep your eye on that. All right, coming up next, we're going to be joined by Spencer McLaughlin. He is the host of Locked On Pac-12, the podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Has had a lot of interesting. I've been listening to a lot of his shows. He's kind of looked at every angle of this conference realignment deal. Want to get his thoughts on this? We'll get to that next. This is the Saturday Show right here on 97.5 FM, the KSL Sports Zone.